lovelies, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to this psychic reading for Marilyn Monroe. This reading involves no cards. I am just going to connect with Marilyn Monroe's energy and read empathically for her. So I hope you enjoy the reading. Please do leave some love if you do. Okay. Marilyn Monroe's energy, and she would prefer that I call her Norma Jeane. So if you don't know, Marilyn Monroe was her stage name. Norma Jeane was her birth name. And she's saying that in spirit she does prefer to be called Norma Jeane or NJ. I will call her Norma Jeane. I think that's okay with her. Her energy is completely different to what I expected. Marilyn Monroe was an icon, okay? She was someone who changed the way pop culture was portrayed, especially women. You know, she was in Playboy, and you know, the Hollywood scene really focused on her body, and she doesn't like that. It's not something she's particularly fond of or that she is proud of. She's a very deep soul, and she experienced a lot of trauma in life. I'm going to be honest, she led a very sad life. Even her spirit now on the other side, she feels very emotional, but it's really weird because usually when I would pick up on this kind of emotion with the spirit, it would make me cry, but there's such an outer strength with her. And I feel like that's how she was on earth. Like, no one saw her pain or the depths of her hurt except her. When she was around other people or she was with other people, you know, she put on this brave face. But she wasn't a loud person, and she isn't loud in spirit. She's very quiet, she's very reserved, she's very elegant. She has a smile on her face, and you know, she's like, I always hurt inside. She's like, I can't remember a time in my life where I didn't hurt inside. And I can, if outwardly I look fine, and outwardly she looks fine, but inside, the emotions I'm feeling, I feel like inside I'm crying. You know, like people say she's crying on the inside. I feel like Norma Jeane was the absolute representative of that phrase. She's crying on the inside, because I feel like inwardly I feel very emotional. Like, I feel like my tears are inside, and she held so much in. There is so much suppressed emotion. You know, she was the epitome of paint on a face and keep going. And it stems from her childhood. You know, she had a very traumatic childhood. Her father wasn't a part of her life, and her mum suffered with mental health issues, and so she was left from a young age. She was put into foster care, and she was abused basically and used from a very young age. And so that was her familiarity, and all she wanted was to be liked and to be loved. I feel like even from a young age, Norma Jeane struggled to make friends. She struggled to connect with people, because that one person in her life who was meant to be there from the get-go to connect with, her mother, her parents, weren't there. And so she didn't learn connection. She struggled with connection. Connection to other people was something she struggled with. And she's talking about her marriages. She said, each one of my husbands loved me. You know, there was no doubt about that. They loved me. But even then, I still felt unwanted. There is this deep-rooted unworthiness with her. There's this unworthiness of, I'm dirty and I'm sorry. It's actually really sad. There's this thing of, no one cares about me and no one loves me. And when she finally got that attention through the modelling, which then went on to lead on to acting for her, she was like, oh my gosh. At first she was like, people love me. And it was her first feeling of acceptance, and she got hooked on it. I do feel like she had a addictive personality, because she was always seeking things outside of herself to make herself feel better, to make herself feel loved. So I feel like she had an addictive personality, and that was the same with people. I feel like she got very obsessed with people. So her husband, she was very clingy and she was very needy, and she didn't have a lot of friends. In fact, she's telling me that females didn't like her at all. She was saying, oh, she's so sweet. That's the only thing I can say. She's got a very sweet, kind energy, and oh, she's just, honestly, you just want to wrap her up and be like, it's okay, because she's so just fragile and soft, and it's just not what I expected from her. I expected her to be this loud, characteristic, like, you know, persona, and she's just not like that at all. And she's saying, and I wasn't, you know, only on screen or in front of a camera was I like that. She's like, she's very like that, that's how she talks. And she's saying, you know, if I spoke, because she didn't speak a lot. She didn't speak a lot at all. She's saying, people didn't hear me or didn't want to hear me, or a lot of the time I didn't feel comfortable. You know, she's quite shy and reserved and introvert. I keep wanting to do this because she's very in herself and insecure, and people saw that as like a quirkiness about her. I think I haven't seen a lot of footage of Marilyn Monroe, but I think she's making me feel like if you looked at her, she would have fidgeted a lot and she would have moved a lot, and people saw that as her flaunting. She's saying, actually, it was because I felt incredibly awkward. I felt incredibly uncomfortable in front of people. She's saying there were in some way, she was a Gemini, and she is epitome of that, because she's saying in some ways I wanted that attention. She's like, but in other ways it made me feel very uncomfortable. But she's saying women didn't like me, and that's from a young age. She's pointing down here, she's saying from a very small age, girls didn't like me. And I was such a girly girl. I used to long for that, especially not having a mother. I used to long for that womanly connection. But she's saying I was very dominated by men. My husbands and their friends, then people in the industry, men, they were all men. And so to be liked in a room of men, the things that men liked about me was my body. They liked my sexuality, they liked my sensuality, they liked the way I looked. And she's like, she's very uncomfortable to say that. That's not something she's proud of. She's very uncomfortable to say that. She's like, I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of that. And she's very aware that she's an icon, but she's saying, you know, for the wrong reasons. And it's really sad. It's really sad because, yeah, she's saying this icon that they made me out to be, that everyone loves me for, I don't like her. And it's not who I would have chose to be, but it's the only way people would see me. And a lot of the time she did feel invisible. She's showing me herself at dinners and balls where she would try and conversate with people, but they didn't want to hear what she had to say. And it's a real shame because she wasn't dumb. You know, she was portrayed to be this dumb blonde, this stereotypical dumb blonde, but she's actually, and was actually, a very deep soul. Marilyn Monroe saw things, and she was a very analytical person. She was the type of person who could just watch a room, and she could feel people's energies, and she could watch a room and she would know intuitively, okay, those people are having problems in their marriage. And she would just, a lot of the time she would spend a lot of her life just sitting and analysing people. And she was very like, is retrospective the right word? She was very analytical of life, but she had a lot to talk about. So it's crazy that she didn't conversate a lot, but she's saying I was involved in a lot of deep conversations, but I just personally didn't speak. So she's saying I heard a lot and I picked up on a lot and I took a lot in, and I did know a lot about life, and I was very intellectual. And had I have gone on, I would have worked a lot within charity and politics, and I would have gone on to help the world. She's got a very big heart, and honestly, she was a very kind-hearted woman. And she's saying, yes, there was this persona, this part of me that was very extrovert, but really that wasn't who I was. She's talking about Hollywood now, and she's saying, oh, that toxic place. She's saying it's a toxic industry. She's saying they lifted me up and they made me feel so loved and wanted. Oh, you know, you're perfect for this role, you're perfect for this role, and this is what we want you to do. And they tried to carbon cut her and play her like a puppet. She's saying I was like a puppet on a string, and she's saying initially I went along with it because I wanted to be accepted. She's saying, but after a while, you know, I grew out of playing that role. It wasn't what I wanted to do, and then things became very toxic and they started to cast me out and shun me and threaten me, and there were a lot of threats made, and I feel physical threats. I feel she suffered a lot. You know, she's talking about, you know, the Me Too movement in Hollywood now. She's saying that that's been going on for decades. You know, she's saying that that's been going on since the beginning of time, and you know, people touched me and put their hands on me and, you know, did all sort of things to me, but I'd signed contracts and she's talking a lot about being paid off, and before I turned the camera on, she talked about being paid off. She was paid to not speak against people, and she was threatened a lot. Okay, she was threatened to the point where the men in power that she had, you know, suffered from, they would say things to her like, you know, I know the government in this, not the government, sorry, I know the police force in this area, and I know the judges, and I know the police department, so there's no point in you telling anyone what's happened to you. Here's some money, just be quiet. And, you know, she was really silenced, and I feel it inside of her, you know, and I feel like that honestly was the way it was for her all the way up until her death, from the moment she got into Hollywood all the way up until her death. And one of her husbands, Joe DiMaggio, the baseball player, I feel like he saw this from the offset. He hated Hollywood and he wanted to bring her out of it. And even when they divorced, she did marry again after that. She married Arthur Miller, but even after Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe divorced, they still remained friends. And she's saying he was my only ally. He was the only person I could rely on up to my death. She's saying he was one of the last calls that I made. And he knew a lot, and he carried a lot of her secrets. And, you know, just a fact for you, even after she died, I think it was every week he would send flowers to her memorial. You know, he really loved her. And she's saying, and I loved him too. But they made her sign things, they threatened her. And when we're talking about her passing, it's okay. She's saying, yes, I did take my own life, but they put the pills in my hand. And I feel with her what happened was this. I feel like she was given an ultimatum. It was like, you do this to yourself, you do this, or we will do it for you. Because she knew a lot. And you guys always ask, well, what does she know? What does she know? What does she know? She'd seen the way they treated, not just her in Hollywood, these men, but the way they treated, she could have ruined people's careers, but she was petrified. You know, there's this innocent girl, and okay, yes, we will get on to her promiscuity. What's the word? Promiscuity. We will get on to that because she did play on that. That was her power. This is a girl who had no power. She had no family. She had nothing. Okay, she had nothing. And so her power came from her sexuality, and she did play on that. She's saying, I did play on that. She's saying, I did sleep with powerful men. I did flaunt myself in that way, but there were also other people. That didn't mean I was saying to everyone, come and get me. She's saying there were people that took advantage of that. She is saying I could have well and truly ruined a lot of famous directors, producers, actors, musicians. I could have ruined a lot of people's careers. Money. And she was making money as well. So when she wanted to stop playing these parts, because one thing about her is she's saying there was just so much more to me than that. There was so much more to me than being that dumb blonde that I'd become known for and just being a sexual being. Like, yes, you know, that is how I came up, and I was happy to accept it because finally I felt wanted. Finally I felt wanted. But that's not the life I wanted for myself. She was an and is intellectual. She was deep, she was intuitive, she wanted to play serious roles, she wanted to do better things, she wanted to make a positive difference. She had a very big heart. And these people who were making money from her are like, no, you're not going to do that. And they tried to, you know, silence her and keep her quiet in all different kinds of ways. And this Joe DiMaggio did know that, and he hated Hollywood. And he tried to pull her out of it. You know, he hated the paparazzi, and, you know, he would be on set with her, I feel, and he would be having arguments with the producers and the directors about the way they would treat her and the things they would say to her, because she was treated very badly. You know, even the way they would talk to her, like, oh, just shut up, you dumb nothing. You know, it was almost like she was just a body. You know, you're just there to look good. And she's admitting, she's saying, I would just grin and bear it because I wanted to be liked. You know, she was such a insecure soul and lost soul, and she'd been so abused and poorly treated as a child and was such an outcast that as an adult she was like, oh, people like me the way I look, people like this, so yeah, I'm gonna play to this. And that did cause a rift in her marriage, and she would have gone on to marry this man again because they, like I said, they remained friends for a long time, and she's wanting to put the ring he gave her back on her finger. But she's, you know, she's bringing me to her stomach as well. You know, she really wanted children, and that's another pain she suffered. Like, her life was just a series of painful events, and she wanted to have children, she wanted to be a mother, and she would have been a wonderful mother because she related to children in a way similar to Michael Jackson, because she didn't have a childhood. She had to grow up very quickly because of her circumstance. She understood what children needed, and she would have been a wonderful mother, and she wanted it so badly, and that broke her as well. So she carried a lot of pain, and as a mirror for that was Marilyn Monroe. Glamorous, look at me, people love me. But she's saying that wasn't the reality of my life. And you know, she's tearful about that, even in spirit. She's saying the reality of my life was far from that. And it's just like, ugh, like the pain in her stomach is just like, ugh, it was just nothing like that. My life wasn't glamorous. She's saying, nor did I really want it to be. I just wanted to be loved. You know, this isn't a girl who set out to be a model or an actress. She fell into it, but she stayed with it because of how it made her feel. So as we move towards her passing, she's showing me a lot of papers. So I feel like she had to sign a lot of papers, but I feel like a lot of people disclosed information to her, and I feel like a lot of people would call her up. But she was a listener. You know, I said she didn't speak a lot, but the things she did say were very wise, and she had very wise words, and she would say things to people and they'd be like, okay. Do you know what I mean? But she wouldn't say a lot. She wasn't a massive speaker. She was a woman of few words, but the words she did say were meaningful. And I feel like there were powerful men that she did speak with and sit with and conversate with and be a part of conversations with. When I say a part of conversations, I mean she would be listening. And I feel like JFK was one of them. But her passing is not to do with JFK. She doesn't link any of her passing to do with him. She's saying, oh, that he was a flirtatious one. You know, she liked to flirt as well. She's saying, I liked that. I liked to be wanted in any way. You know, she's saying, I like to be wanted in any way. And she liked him for that. She's saying we had a lot of fun together. But he wasn't serious, and she's saying, and I wasn't the only one. You know, I wasn't the only one he flirted with or did things with. There were many others. And she's saying, nor was he the only one that I was very promiscuous. I was very open. I was very, because that's how I received my love. And her passing, I really do feel, was blackmail. Blackmail and like she was forced into it. And it's sad. It's really sad. And she, as a spirit, considering she passed away so long ago, her energy feels stuck, because I feel like she struggles to accept how traumatic her life was, and I don't even feel like I have really portrayed how traumatic her life was, because when it comes to emotions, she hid her emotions very well, and she's making me hide it as well. If she wasn't, I would be in tears. Let me tell you that. I would be in absolute floods of tears, because the things this woman experienced, she was just used and abused for her whole life. But she hid it. She hid it very well, and she didn't share that. You never, she's saying, people didn't see me cry. People didn't see that. So I feel like when we're talking about her passing, and she is saying murdered to me, she does want it to be known as a murder, but she is saying, I took the pills, they gave me the pills, they made this happen, they made this happen to me. And there's a blackmail as well. She was being blackmailed, and I just feel they told her to do it. I feel like she was told to take her own life. I feel like they told her, you do this, or we will make sure it's done. And I feel like towards the end of her days, she was watched. She's making me feel like she didn't leave the house a lot, and if she did, she's putting on glasses and a headscarf, and there was disguises. She's very on edge, towards the end of her life. She doesn't feel, she never felt great anyway, but she feels really like on edge. Like, again, we have that fidgeting thing. She makes me feel like she fidgeted a lot, but towards the end, she knew they were coming, and that's why she was making so many calls. I feel like when they checked her, because when she was found, she had the phone on the bed, but I feel like she was making a lot of calls before she passed as well, because she was trying to seek advice. And she is saying that Mr. DiMaggio was one of the last calls she made. He was one of the last people she spoke to. She's upset about it. She's saddened by her life. It's insane, isn't it? There's this icon that we look at and think, oh my goodness, Marilyn Monroe, but her spirit is anything but that. And she hates it. She hates the fact that she's remembered for her body and her image. She's just like, her words, I didn't have a chance from the start. I didn't have a chance from the start. I was abused and used from a young age, and it was what I was familiar to, and I went on to be used and abused for my whole life. And the whole JFK thing, because she does want to settle it, she does keep bringing it up. She's saying he was a fleeting thing in the night. He wasn't really a part of my life, nor was I really a part of his. We crossed paths in parties, but he dismissed me a lot. She's saying, I would try and speak to him, and he would dismiss me, as if to say, like many people did, that my conversation was unimportant. And I feel like that's one thing she really wants people to know. She had a lot to offer. She wasn't just this dumb blonde. She'd experienced a lot, and through that experience, she had a lot to say. I feel like she was empathic, and she was intuitive, and she had a knowing within herself, and she knew when things were going to happen, and she knew, I feel like she foresaw her death as well. I feel like there was something mystical about her, but I feel like she hadn't tapped into it yet, and I feel like had she gone on to live, she would have fully been very consciously, spiritually conscious. But she did have inklings. She just didn't listen to them because she was disconnected from herself. She's saying, I led a very external life. Everything I was trying to get was outside of me. And because of that, I couldn't hear myself spiritually. And she is pulling away, but she's just saying, at the end of the day, I was just a little girl wanting to be loved. Forget the fame, forget the fortune, forget it all. I would have given it all back for just a normal, happy life. Because when she was in partnership, when she was married, you know, this is a girl who loved, like, oh my goodness, she loved, like, her heart just boom. And that's in all her marriages. These weren't fleeting marriages, you know, each one of them, she loved the person she was with, and she gave her everything, and she wanted to have babies, and she wanted to just have this quiet family life. And, you know, it saddens her that she never got to have that. She's also saying she's saddened that what she went through, she still sees going on today. And she's saying it will never change until we pull that construction apart. And we know this, but she is highlighting that. She's saying it upsets me. It upsets me that women are still treated, you know, how I was, and sometimes worse today. You know, she's saying we need to do better. In spirit, she's still not at peace with her life and the way things went. It still hurts. There's still things she hasn't come to terms with. But as we talk about her passing and how she passed over, you know, even that, she's feeling emotional, and she's saying, you know, no, they didn't come in and shoot me, but they definitely made it, they handed me the gun. She wasn't shot, I'm not talking literal, that's a metaphorical fact. She's saying, you know, they basically handed me the gun and said, do it or else. You know, she was threatened. And so no, it wasn't direct murder, but it was definitely indirect. I feel like that's it from Marilyn Monroe. Not at all what I would have expected. But one thing I can tell you is she's got a very pure heart and a very pure soul. And she was just a lost child, you know. I feel like she never fully developed into being a woman. I feel like she was a child throughout her whole life. And even when she found love with those men, you know, her husbands, that's the only people I can say really loved her, like Joe DiMaggio and even Arthur Miller. I feel like they really loved her, but she couldn't accept love. It was like she felt unworthy of it. So even though the real love she did receive from those men, you know, even though she did receive it, accepting it was a complete different story. The only place she felt not even wanted, but seen, validated, liked, because liked was an important thing for her, was in the limelight. She's saying, but ultimately, she's saying ultimately that, you know, that was a lose-lose situation, because that's what destroyed me. It's heavy. It's a lot. And I'm just sending love and light to her spirit, because I feel like she hasn't transitioned. I feel like she's stuck. And I feel like, you know, she needs that love and light to move on. She deserves that. Her spirit deserves to be free for all she had to endure in life. I ask that when we remember the icon that is Marilyn Monroe, we remember her beautiful heart. Thank you so much for being with me today, lovelies, and I'll see you soon. Bye.